Hello and welcome to my channel. I am ZodiacBandit, and today we're going to be recapping episode 31 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. So, let's get right into it. First, where we start, the Nightmare King asks Imogen what she saw through the telescope. She explains that she saw a lattice cage of energy, or ley lines, surrounding Ruidus. The Nightmare King puts his head into the telescope and begins taking down some notes, making weird noises of intrigue as he does it. FCG tries to read his mind, but can't get in. Ira, the Nightmare King, starts flipping dials and flipping switches, looking for, quote, them. The telescope is going nuts, flipping around the room as he is flipping these dials. He wants to see their faces when they fail. The party want to know who they are. He dodges the question and continues to flip the dials. Imogen starts to lean in to try to look at who he is talking about or who he is trying to look at, but she meets an invisible wall. Orm asks if he means the Unseelie Court and the people involved with them. Iris says yes, Odahan, and then he, name drops the older gentleman, elven gentleman with silver hair, as Ludinus, which is nuts. He then says that he needs to get the stench of Calloway off him. As he tries to move his way up the telescope, Fern tries to move in to see what he's looking at, but meets the same invisible wall. Ira then fully climbs the telescope and then removes the crown from it. FCG tries to cast Hold Person, but it doesn't work, as nothing goes through the wall, and Hold Person only works on humanoids, implying he is not that, which, looking at that, makes sense. Imogen tries to hold him with telekinesis, but nothing passes through the wall. So it's obviously Wall of Force. Iris says that they can look through the telescope all they want now, and he vanishes with a dark little energy blip. The party look to see if the telescope is still aimed at what he was looking at, but he was smart enough to change it. Orem checks to see if the weave lens is still in the machine, while the rest of the party talk about the city in or on Ruidus. It's hard to quite pick if it's supposed to be inside the storm or if it's like on the planet of Ruidus or the moon of Ruidus. I'm gonna say in for the purpose of this. Hundir asks Imogen to clarify. She explains that she saw a lattice cage around the storm and that when the storm parted, she could see a city within. Hundir pulls out a book, and in the book is a sketched image that looks just like the lattice cage that Imogen saw. Hundir explains that this lattice pattern is the energy from the gods, or energy pattern from the gods, that they used to divide themselves from the material plane, also known as the Divine Gate. After this, the party think about connections to Ira, from Odahan and the Apex War to the Unseelie Court, and if they're still working together or if they're not working together anymore. They come to the conclusion that Ira did work for them at one point, but isn't anymore, hopefully. And I would imagine he's not, based off the fact that he wants to see them fail. Orem finds the lens, jumps back down to everybody else. Ashton asks to look at it. Orem gives him the weave lens, and Ashton immediately smashes it with his hammer. Everyone else freaks out, and it's now in a bunch of pieces. Laudna casts Mending on it, and the glass pieces form back together, but no way to really tell if the magic still works or not, as it's already been used today. The party asks for where Ira's stuff was, and Birdie goes and opens a chest that was his. They find a bunch of random stuff in it, but the most important thing was a map with arrows on it, and at some point the arrows diverge, and the name Treshy is on it to the northeast. Ashton asks Birdie and Ollie to explain their timeline in all of this. Birdie then talks about, for some reason, she just goes on to talk about the crown instead of their timeline and the powers that it has and how it helped them escape and kill the assassins who were chasing them. Imogen brings up that they have an in on the other side with the Paragon's Call if they ever want to bring it up and be like, hey, we know what you guys are doing, blah, blah, blah. Chetney hates this idea. He doesn't think that that's a good idea to reach out to them with this information. Ashton agrees, though. FCG brings up the idea of someone else who is smarter than them looking at the telescope. The party thinks that FCG is talking about Imahara Joe, but FCG is really talking about Dancer. Orem then explains who Ruidus is and gives a little bit about where he's from, and that is that he is a member of the Cerberus Assembly and is from the Dundalian Empire, and that he is a high-ranking member of that society. So he's kind of dangerous. They start looking at their other options, like getting Treshy again and fulfilling their contract with Esteros. It's been a while since Esteros has come up. But they also talk about going to Eos and looking at all the people heading there who are just like Imogen. But that's not really a good option with the crawlers. They might need to wait for the airship. And in order to get the airship on their side, they kind of need to do the Treshy thing. So they're kind of back at square one. Ashton asks what the timeline is with Ollie and Birdie once again, and what was the purpose of leaving Fern behind. They say they couldn't get caught by the assassins and it was difficult with a young child. Birdie spent some time with Maury, and when she was younger, Maury is just misunderstood, so they believed it was a good idea to keep her there. Ashton gets the idea of leaving someone somewhere safe, as it is a good idea, especially if you can't get caught and if them getting caught gets them hurt. He understands that idea. They regret leaving her there because of everything, her aging up, and then her also getting, found out anyway. But they started doing all of this for her anyway. This was all because she is attached to it and they want to protect her. Imogen says 6 years away is too long. Ollie agrees, but if they went back, she would have been put in danger. But she already was in danger, regardless of all of it. Lana asks if there was a trade made with Maury for Fern. Birdie is insulted by this idea, as this is her daughter and she just wanted to protect her. Ashton thinks there are pieces of their story missing. They ask if they can look through their minds to see if they can see anything weird or off. Ollie says yes to this, and so does Birdie after Laudna kind of points out she wasn't totally open to the idea, but Birdie says, no, I'm open to it, I just didn't want to steal Ollie's thunder. They look into Ollie's mind, and the first thing they see is Ollie and Birdie meeting the Nightmare King in a cave. Then they are traveling with him on caravans with him being in disguise. They're in a library and they hear people coming for them, so they have to flee. But then there's a smear or a blurry memory, and then it moves on to the Nightmare King showing Ollie his work and how that works, and then more smears of memory. They zoom out and see a bunch of these smears throughout all of Ollie's mind and his history with the Nightmare King. They try to piece his memory back together. They see a memory of Birdie and Ollie about to leave the safety of this little shack. Then, as they try to piece this together, Ollie begins to bleed from his nose. Orem says to be careful, but Fern says to keep going. Imogen and FCG both stop. FCG doesn't think that this was lost time, but more so being magically convinced to keep working with Ira. Orem theorizes that because the party was there, Ira didn't do this blurring of the memory thing again, like he would have the last time they learned something that they didn't like. Birdie feels betrayed by all of this, like she should, so at this point, Fern asks Chetney for the music box. The music isn't great, but the wood and the carvings are great, of course, because Chetney is an MC, master craftsman. They talk about resting or going to meet the Paragon's Call, to which Matt kind of reaffirms to them that there's no timeline to go meet the Paragon's Call. It's kind of more when they can. They choose to rest, and Ashton wants to tear this place apart to look for all the crap that they can. Orem goes to the top of the telescope after Ashton has a little inkling about maybe he's been hiding stuff up there, and finds writing at the top, but needs Laudna to read whatever the writing says because it's not in common. Imogen casts Fly on her, so she can go up and read it because her frail bones wouldn't be able to lift her up there acrobatically, so it makes sense that she needs to fly. The writings are dates and measurements of the moon Ruidus' arc through the sky over a 6-month period. It seems to be a little bit longer that he's been tracking it, though, but the arc is over 6 months. There are some other writings and the word curiosity in Sylvan. Orm tries to make a connection between the writings and the directions the telescope would have been facing, and then also tries to correlate it with the map that they found in his chest. The Panagrip Sands, maybe that's where Ira went. They're not quite sure, but it's in the same sort of direction that the Treshy note was written in. Imogen goes to Fern to talk to her about how she's feeling about all this and her parents. She is mad about it, as anyone would be. FCG says that their old group used to have a doll that they could yell at, but they don't have a doll, so Fern can yell at FCG. Fern then goes to her parents and says she can't forgive them quite yet, but asks to get to know them better, and after that, she'll work on forgiving them. Orm asks Imogen to go outside. He tells her that, he can't quite believe what he saw on Ruidus, and goes on to say that they need to go to Eos to look into it more. He also says that she's a great and caring person and is a born leader, which is very in line with being Ruidus born. Orm then asks Imogen to send a message to Keyleth, which says he is following leads and that there is an event coming up in the next month to look out for, to which Keyleth replies that she'll look into it on her end. After that, Orm and Imogen go their own ways. Orm uses the Sending Stone to talk to Dorian. He tells Dorian that he misses him and that there's a lot of stuff going on with them right now. Dorian answers saying he's thinking of them as well, and that the floating bar was harder to land than they thought it would be. After that, we cut to FCG, who is casting Sending of their own to Dancer. FCG, says, FCG reporting in, where are you? What have you been up to? To which Dancer responds, how did you find me? What do you want? A little ominous, but FCG can't send anything back as they are now out of spells. FCG then wants to go watch Imogen sleep, just in case she dreams. Imogen wants to hold Laudna's hand while she is asleep, so that maybe she can be in the dream too, just like the Gnarl Rock was when she was holding it. Fern at night wants to take 2 of the purple stones, which are Gnarl Rocks, which, thank you for those who informed me correctly. 2 Gnarl Rocks while everyone else is sleeping. She's able to get one and doesn't touch it, but this wakes up Orm, and Orm doesn't let her know that he is awake. She takes a second one and is holding them by their ropes. She puts one in the dollhouse with Laudna's dolls and now Fern's new doll that she got from Chetney. And then she tries to sneak one into Imogen's bag without anyone seeing. However, FCG is watching Imogen, but Fern is able to stealth past anyway. But Orm is awake and is well aware of what's going on. The next morning, everyone wakes up and Laudna finds the stone in the dollhouse and is happy that Sashimi and Pate made a child. Then she gets told that that likely didn't happen, which, how dare you? How dare you tell Laudna that? Laudna thinks after that Pate might be conspiring against her, to which Imogen points out that it's probably not that either. And Laudna says, yeah, he would never betray me. Laudna goes to touch it and hears Delilah reach out to her. She tells Delilah that she's trying to keep her safe and that, she needs to deal with magic items to keep her safe, like she did with the last Gnarl Rock. And that her friends will betray her if she continues to stick around these magic items. Laudna then goes off alone to talk to Delilah. Delilah says she did her own eclipse research, on a very specific timeline for herself, and is interested in what the current party is doing and, want to see it through to the very end. And at the very most, Delilah wants Laudna to get as heavily involved with this event as possible. Laudna goes back to the group trying to figure out how to get Delilah out of her head. She shakes her out of her head a little bit, and the group try to figure out what to do next. They choose to see what Dancer is up to. FCG reaches out to Dancer once again and asks where she is. Dancer answers back to leave her alone. FCG knows what they did. This causes FCG to take 4 points of something, leaving them limp. Imogen tries to read their mind, but only hears a ton of voices of every memory, of everyone in the party, people they've met, people's voices that Imogen doesn't know. She tries to dig deeper, but hears static and is kicked out. Chetney says he saw Joe do this once and hits FCG with his hammer. FCG then immediately cuts Chetney with his buzzsaw and then casts spiritual weapon in the shape of a wood chisel and smashes Chetney with it. FCG then moves up to Chetney, and this is my favorite moment of all Campaign 3 so far. When this happens, this is perfect. FCG moves up to Chetney and says, "Why don't you shut up? Why don't you just shut your fucking mouth?" This is where combat starts. That is so off character for FCG in this moment. It was perfect. Caught me off guard. I was dying, laughing hysterically for a solid 5 minutes as they rolled up initiative. Ashton is up first. They run up and grab FCG, restraining them. Laudna casts Hunger of Shadow, critting, dealing 50 damage. Fern is up next and casts Heat Metal. Both Laudna and Ashton are both still holding on to FCG, so this is going to hurt them as well. Fern deals 15 damage, KOing FCG. But before they go down, they say to Fern that her parents don't like her and wanted to get rid of her, and they were right for doing so. FCG turns to Laudna and says she was never alive, and this is when FCG goes down. This makes Laudna extremely mad, and her nails begin puncturing FCG's head. FCG is now fully unconscious. The party detach FCG's weapons and tie them upside down, hanging from the ceiling. They heal FCG. FCG is confused and doesn't understand why everyone is on the ceiling when they wake up. The party tell FCG what they did. FCG doesn't remember it at all, but Imogen looks into their mind and sees that, in fact, this was erased or rewritten in their head. Ashton has never seen this kind of personality from them. This way of thinking of attacking and being very savage with what they're saying. The party question if this is what happened to Dancer's group. Did FCG go crazy and kill all of Dancer's people? The party asked what the scene of Dancer's party was like, the murder scene. Ashton thinks back and rolls a 20, and they think it's possible that FCG was in fact the one that did it. But what about the one-eyed creature? Ashton remarks that they had to get FCG's eye repaired after they met for the first time, which does kind of confirm that FCG was the one-eyed creature. Ashton defends FCG, saying, "This whole group is like this. Everyone but Orem can snap at a moment's notice. Chetney has snapped before. Laudna can snap. Fern is trouble all the time. Ashton has snapped. Imogen is the person most afraid of herself snapping. They're all like this, but it's up to everyone else to bring them back to normal." The party agree to bring everyone back to normal once they lose control and to watch out for each other. They now need answers, and they think to go look for Dancer and Bassaris, as she is going to have the most answers surrounding FCG. This is where the episode ends, with them hitting the open sand on their crawlers, heading back toward Bassaris with a new goal in mind of finding answers to what is going on with FCG. I really enjoyed this episode. Super fun. Quite a lot in there. A lot of jam-packed stuff going on with all of it. Very excited for not next week, because they're taking a break, because of course they are, but the following week. I think it was September 3rd, if I'm looking at the calendar correctly, which I'm not looking at one at all, so you never know. But that was this episode. Super fun, super intense, and it was all within the confines of a single, 2 rooms was all this episode needed for it to feel insanely tense, insanely fun, and honestly, probably one of my favorite episodes. It holds my favorite moment of Campaign 3 so far, which is FCG going absolutely ballistic on the party as they attack him. I will never get over "Why don't you shut up?" Why don't you shut your mouth? Why don't you shut the fuck up? It's perfect. I think that is so perfect to come out of FCG's mouth. It is such a good contrast in personality from what he was before. I loved every second of it. Super excited to see what comes next. I can't wait to learn more. I'm glad that my video a while back on what I believed FCG's, party killer to be was completely wrong. This is much better than what I thought. I was like, it's a beholder. I'm boring like that, or it was a displacer beast, or something stupid like that, or whatever. But yeah, this was a great twist, and honestly one I didn't see coming. So that was exciting. Anyway, I'll see you guys next week. Have a good weekend. Peace.